a terrible shine, isn't it? It's not going to go away. I'll get the lighting good for you all. We'll start in a minute. Oh, no, you all know I'm here. Hey, Deb. We will start at 7. I just like to be set up. Emily, if you don't have the paints on the list, just substitute what you have. It's not a problem to substitute. I never have an issue with that. So any brown will work. If you have a darker brown, just substitute a lighter brown. Okay? So it's not a problem. Okay. One minute. I did this one pretty good. Huh. Okay, I'll pop you around. And then we'll go back. Fixing my messy little thing. Nope, I could still have you here. Ha! Ah, me. Hi all. Espresso's fine. Thanks, Deb. All right, welcome. Happy fall. It's November. It's nice and warm for November, so I'm a happy camper. Welcome. A couple of things that I'm just going to go through really quick. I try to answer all comments. If I can't answer them, I will answer them after class, so don't worry about that. I'm going to pop you around. I am more prepped. I'll show you when I go around, but I'm going to show you everything from start to finish. If you have questions, ask me. I will answer, and I guess that's it. All right, I'm going to pop you around. At the end of class, I will show you a sneak peek of, well, I'll show you next Wednesday's piece, and then I'll show you a sneak peek for December, and I will show you what surface you should buy for January. All right, I'm around. All right, see you in a bit. Okay, there you go. I should be right back. And just FYI, so you'll know, you are on a delay. So I'm ahead of you. So if I'm off the camera at any time, I have the regular camera in front of me. Okay, so here's where I am. Now I just took, they're different pieces of wood. I just took a plain piece of wood that I had, okay? My background, and I do this background pretty frequently. I'm going to use 3 colors. I'm going to use Aqua Sky, I'm going to use Navy Blue, and I'm going to use Paynes Gray. If I can press it. Okay. Okay, those are going to be my 3 colors. Those are the 3 colors in my background. Now, if you see, you can see the lighter values, you can see the mid value, and then down here is my darker value. So to start, I use base coating brushes. My base coating brushes are pretty crappy. All right, I never throw brushes out. You can use brushes, just use them for base coating versus your good painting. All right, so I'm going to take a little bit of Aqua Sky. And I'm not going to do the whole background. I'm just going to show you how I did it. I'm going to take some Navy. I'm going to take some Paynes Gray. I'm going to wet my brush. So I'm going to go from my water and my brush straight to my paper towel so that I have a damp, I don't have a wet brush, I have a damp brush, just so that the bristles move. Okay. Hey, Jane. All right. Now, I want my sky to go horizontally. So I'm just back and forth horizontally. While it's wet, I'm going to come in, and I'm not taking any paint off my brush. I'm just going to pick up the navy. I'm going to drag it right in. And you see how I'm just blending so that I still have many values of color. I'm not blending so much like up here and creating a whole new color. That's not what I want to do. I want to leave, so if you do that, come back in with your light and break it up. Down here, I want that to be my darkest area, so I'm just picking up the Paynes gray. Now you can see I have all three colors on my brush. I'm just going to come in, and the same thing. And I'm just back and forth. Very easy, huh? And I have a beautiful background. Now this will translate to this. Okay? See that? And then with everything, all our elements on top. But that's what this is. I'm going to take my brush, and you can rinse it. I know I shouldn't say, but my old brushes, I leave them in water till the end of class. That doesn't bother me. Don't do it with my good brushes, because then you'll ruin your brushes. And you want to take care of your brushes. You always want to take care of your brushes. All right. And I'm just wiping this to dry it, because I'm going to do some things and turn it over. All right, so after I do that, I'm going to transfer my pattern. So line drawings are on my Facebook page until the night of class. Hey, Marlene. I'm so glad you're here. Hey, Marie. All right, I'm glad you're here, too. I'm glad you're all here. Thank you so much for coming and spending your Thursday night with me. I'm so lucky to do what I love. So I'm going to take my pattern. I'm going to lay my pattern down. Now, one of the common things that people do is they'll take their graphite paper and they'll lay it down, and then they'll try to figure out if it's straight or if it's the right place. Never do that. Lay your line drawing down. Some people tape it, so they'll take a piece of tape and just tape it here, and that's fine. Graphite paper. Some companies call it graphite. Some companies call it transfer paper. Both the same thing. It's just what they call it. It has a dull side and it has a shiny side. The shiny side is down, and if you see how many times I've used it? You can use a piece of graphite paper over and over and over and over and over again, like 100 times. So I have my line drawing down. I'm just going to hold it. I'm going to slip this under. Now we may have a little bit of a problem because you need your base coat to be dry. And I'm just going to, let me see if it's working. Now let's come down here. There you go. All right, and I'm just going to follow my line drawing. Now, I'm using a stylus. You can use a pencil, you can use a pen, you can use anything you want. This is all about the pressure. It's not what you're using. So now, what I'll do is now I'm going to hold, am I on screen? I'm going to hold this end, and I'm going to lift. And then, as long as it's there, then I can lift my pattern. Okay? If you are not, and then just say I forgot something and say, ooh, here. I'll go here. I'll lay it back down, lift, and slip it back under. Okay? On your initial base coat, and a lot of beginners do this, they'll put the eyes, the beak. When we paint it, you'll go right over it. So I wouldn't even bother doing it. But if you do, it's not a bad thing. Barbara, it's on my Facebook up until the day of class, and then I take it off because they become pattern packets. Okay, so we'll come in, and I'm just going to transfer this just so that you have, and I probably went right through the owl. Okay. And this is not dry, that's why this is not transferring. Okay. So, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to base coat our tree. And our tree is going to look like this. We want variations in color, which we'll get to this stage, but right now we're here. So we're going to take Sable Brown and Burnt Umber. Burnt Umber. Sable Brown. Okay. We're going to take a little of each. You don't need much paint. There is a paint shortage everywhere. It is the result of increased demand, shutdowns, and restrictions restricting how much production they could do. So it's across the board. We have to work with it. So if you're not finding the colors that I list, don't worry about it. Get yourself a brown, a green, you know, 2 greens, yellow. Just look at your picture and just come up with something, or message me and I'll give you other choices. So Emily, you had espresso brown. Espresso brown is fine, and then what you'll do is you'll add a little bit of white to it to lighten it. So when we need to be lighter, you'll just add light to it, white to it. Okay, so when I base my tree, this is the perfect beginner class, okay? So when we want to create something with minimal work, this is what we do. Pick up Sable and pick up Burnt Umber. So they're both on the same brush. And I'm just going to come in, and I'm almost doing the same thing I did on the sky. I'm just going to get a bigger brush. It'll go faster. You think so, huh? And I'm just pulling. Now if I get too dark, I'll just bring in some white. And I'm here. Okay. When I get to my branches, you can bump to a smaller brush. I kind of take the lazy way out, and I'm here. And then I just move to the chisel edge. Okay, so here's your bristles, here's your ferrule, here's your handle. This here, the tip of your bristles, is your chisel edge. So instead of keeping my brush flat with all the bristles down, I'm up and I'm on the chisel edge. And then I'm just pulling my branches. We're going to do a lot more to this tree, so it doesn't matter if it's not perfect. I just want to block it in. Okay? If I'm talking too fast, somebody comment. I feel like I'm talking too fast. Just comment and tell me slow down, and I will. Okay, on this piece, my tree is going off to the side, so we're only seeing this part of the tree. Okay. Welcome, everybody. For those of you who just came in, thank you for spending your Thursday with me. I'm very lucky to be able to do this. Okay. So, and I'm wiping. I don't want you to wipe, but I'm wiping because I'm going to flip over. Your owl will be in. So, you have your sky in. We just put our tree in. And your owl is here. Now, your owl is not based. Your owl looks like this. Now, when you transfer in, if you transferred these details, watch what's going to happen. We're going to take Sable Brown, and we're going to, forget the fact that I painted a tree right over him. And we're going to paint right over it. That's why I say don't put it in. And that's why I say if you put it in, it's not a big deal. Because you're just going to have to go back and put your details over it. So it's not a big deal at all. Just a little extra work. But good practice. Okay, so here. And here. And at the end of the class, I'll show you December's beginner piece, which I'm very excited for. And then I'll show you the surface for January so that you can run to the store and get it now. I just finished it last night. My dear boss is so patient with me because I promised her I'd have it last weekend and I did not. So we just beg her to be patient. So I've base coated. Now, you can see, I can't see my details, right? 1 minute, get the fan. And we'll slow down in a minute. Now, those of you who are painting along with me, keep painting what you're doing and listen to what I'm saying, okay? Because I don't want you to stop and not keep up. I want you to listen to what I'm saying. And those of you who are not, listen to what I'm saying. When you base coat, my brush is a little damp. I'm going to pick up my paints. Okay, I have a good amount of paint on there, but I don't have a scoop of paint. Okay, I don't put a scoop of paint on my brush. I dress my brush with paint so there's a decent amount, but it's not a ton of paint. When I base coat, let me do it up here. I'm going to do nice thin coats. You see how I'm pulling that paint so that you have, you have no lumps there. You don't want lumps there. You do not want this. See those ridges? Those ridges will dry like those ridges, and you don't want them to dry like that. Okay? You want to pull. If it takes you two, usually most colors will cover in 2 coats. If it takes you 3 coats, let it take you 3 coats. Dry between coats. If you don't dry between coats, you're going to pull the paint underneath up, and that's called digging a hole that you won't be able to cover. If you have those lumps, they dry that way. So you're not doing yourself any favors by trying to do 3 coats in one. Everything above that. Base coating is super, super important. It's important because it's the basis for everything that goes on top. All right? So take your time base coating. And this is coming from somebody who hates base coating. Okay? If I could skip the base coating part of all of my projects, I would. But I know the importance of base coating. So take your time, base coat properly, because everything on top of it matters by what's underneath it. Okay. So once your owl is on, you're going to come in and you're going to lay your pattern right on top. Now, if you don't have it on tracing paper, a good trick is to hold your piece this way. I know you can't see, so on an angle. You'll be able to see through the paper if you're up towards the light. I know it's wood, but you still will be able to see. Okay? And then hold it. You'll be able to see it because, let me just see something. I don't know if this will work on camera. I know it'll work, but I don't know if it'll work on camera. And now if I hold it this way, I can see that outline. So when you're home, you can do that. Get yourself a piece of tracing paper. It's a little bit easier. Lay your pattern, your line drawing. Slip, now this is not dry, so I don't know if it's going to work. Slip your graphite underneath. Take whatever you're tracing with. Now, I'm going to trace my details. Yeah, it's not coming out. Okay. Now, here, I would trace here. I don't need to trace here all the outside edges. If you do, it's not a problem. But I don't need to because you're not going to see them. You're not going to need them. So here. This section right here is right here. So I transferred here and I transferred here. I don't need this. I don't need this because it's the outside edge. It's already a different color. Don't worry, okay? In the end, you can come in, I don't know where my eraser is, but graphite will just erase. And when it's on top of paint here, it'll erase right off. So in the end, you'll have your piece. If you have lines in the wrong spot, if you have lines on the outside, you'll just come in at the end and erase whatever you have to. Alright, so nothing you should do in any of your paintings should stress you. It should be a wonderful experience. It should be a fun experience. And one of my favorite sayings, and my students always laugh at me, is you're not married to anything. What you're married to is if you base coat in lumps, because you can't take that off without sanding it off. So something like that you're married to. If I did my background and I hated it, I would just paint over it. If I did the tree and it was like, blah, I would just paint over it. And if this is wrong, I'll just take my background and paint over it. So you're not married to any of that stuff. All right, so just keep in mind that you don't have to worry about any of that. All right, now those painting along with me got an earful and they should be ready to move on. And those of you that are not painting with me, just follow along with me. Okay, so now I want to detail my tree. Okay, now a tree, now let me explain. Dark makes the item recede, light brings the item to us. So I have areas of the bark that look further away and areas that look closer. Now, by doing what we did in two colors here, we accelerated a step. So now we're going to pick up Fawn and Soft Black. And just an FYI, Soft Black is a very dark brown. Okay? So don't be, when you go to the store, Paynes gray is blue. So always look up on the color chart before you substitute something if it's the actual color, because we don't want to put black in the tree. So I'm going to put out a little bit, and you need little bits of paint. I'd rather you take little bits of paints and then go take more if you need it than take big bits of paints and just get rid of it. So I'm going to use my Mezza Luna, which is a dry brush. You can use any dry brush you want. Dry brushes are used dry. They are, you don't wetten them, not speaking English tonight, you don't wet them until after you're done. So when you're done using it, you can clean it. Mezza Lunas you can clean in between, excuse me, and pinch dry. So I'm going to take my paper towel, I'm going to pick up some Fawn. Remember, my brush is dry. And here, now this brush is different. We don't scrub it. We just pinch the color off. Okay? And we're going to come in and we're going to dry brush some random, I'm nice and light, some random areas. I'm not going to make a pattern, but I'm going to just dry brush some random areas. Now the bark of the tree is going this way. Your branches, I have one going this way. So I'm going to follow that. Another thing, super important, turn your piece so that your hand is comfortable as you're painting. Do not try to move your hand like this. Move your piece, your surface, so that your hand is comfortable. You will get a much better technique, whatever it may be, in this case dry brushing. And I'm here. Now you might have an area, I just went there because I hit a spot of blue, so that means I didn't base coat well. And I've reloaded once, so I loaded, I dry brushed, and then I reloaded. And you can see already, part of my tree has the appearance that it's coming closer to me. Okay. Don't stress. I don't put a lot down here, if any, because this is coming, this is the bottom of the tree. Don't stress if you have too much here or too much there, because it doesn't matter. You can go in and you can scrub another color out. Now, this isn't on purpose. Don't go do this. Say I do this and I only take a little bit off and I go like this. You don't want that. So you just come in with a Q-tip, and the Q-tips get at the dollar store because they have just a little bit of cotton on it, and just pull it right off. Okay. If you scrub too much like that, so it's not a heavy, but it's too much, come in with one of your base coat colors, pinch it off, and just scrub through it lightly, and that breaks that right up. Okay, so you can see how easily things are fixed. It's not a hard, hi Rochelle, it's not hard to fix things, that we make mistakes. And let me tell you something, because this is like really important. I hear all the time, Linda, you paint beautifully. Linda, you don't make mistakes. Linda, I love to watch you. And I thank you all for those wonderful words. But Linda does make mistakes. Linda does a lot of things that everybody does. I started as a beginner. I kept painting. I make it look easy because I paint every day. But there's no difference. I make mistakes. I just, you know, I work on fixing them. So don't let anybody tell you that I don't make mistakes. So now I'm going to take some soft black. I washed out this brush because this brush can be washed out. Okay, wait, let me wash it out. I washed it out. I got all the paint out, and I'm pinching it dry. This is not a scrub brush. I know my girlfriend uses it like this. It scares me, but she makes trees way better than me, so she knows more than I do. Okay. So now I'm going to put on soft black, and I'm going to pinch. Okay. So I have just a little bit left. I'm going to do the same thing I did here with the fawn, but I'm going to pretend that nothing's there. I'm not necessarily going around it. There'll be some areas of dark, some areas of light, some areas of base coat. And you see how I'm just making that tree become a tree? Will become, whoops. See? And that wasn't a mistake to show you. That was a true mistake. And I'm just coming in, and I'm not necessarily going everywhere where the light's not, because I want some of the base coat to show too. I want to have, hey Dolores, hi Shirley. I want to have a whole array of values of color. I don't want to just have these two. I don't want to just have these two. I want to have these 4 plus what I'm making as new colors. That's I didn't pinch enough. There we go. Now just say I want some areas to be darker. Okay. So come in. And this area can be even darker than up there. See? That's okay. This tree is going to be lighter than this tree. This tree, I have more dark and I have very little light. Okay, so you see that? This is a lighter tree. It's not a wrong tree. It's just a different color. When you start to paint, when you start to learn how to paint, these little techniques are easy techniques to help you achieve a lot. As you move on with your journey, there's more techniques that'll give you a little different look. But boy, can you create such a beautiful piece with just simple techniques. And I know I didn't say it before because I forgot. Bless the library for keeping us online, or for doing it online. My videos, now we have been doing this since the pandemic, since the lockdown. So keep in mind, it will end one day. But if you go on the library, under the live tabs, well, right now they're under, no, that's not true. Some of them are under the live tabs. So sign on to Mastix, Marich's, Shirley Community Library. Now we're definitely getting dark under the owl because we want to push the branch down and pull the owl up. Remember, dark makes the item recede, light brings it towards us. So if you go on their Facebook page, there's a bunch of tabs at the top. The live tab is where you'll find the recent videos. If you go to the events tab, you'll find the older videos. I do not know how long they will remain there. Last that I looked, everything since we started in, I believe, April, is still there. So you can go, and the library just offers you these wonderful free painting tutorials. So you can tell them how wonderful they are, and then you can tell them how wonderful I am. My boss is here, she knows that. I'm sure that she does now. Okay, so, and I'm just kind of, and I use my finger all the time. See how I use my finger? and I just pull, and I'll come in, and I'm here. So now, just say, okay, let me come down here and make this all dark. Say, because this I like, and this is a matter of, okay, wait, let me tell you this and then I'll tell you that. Just say, I look at this and I say, oh, that's too dark. I clean my brush, I pinch it, I go back to the Fawn, and I'll bring in some light. Okay, so you're never too dark or too light. You could play with this all night long. Okay, I was going to say something else and I lost my train of thought. But it'll pop in my head, don't worry. So, what you're doing is you're creating lights and darks to create depth. And you'll hear me say it 100 times because I truly believe the more you understand why you're doing something, the more you'll understand what you're doing. So you'll go to sleep, you'll hear my voice, and you'll say, great. But if you remember, dark makes the item recede, light brings the item towards us. No matter what we're painting, you will see this is further back, this is closer towards us. When we get to the moon, you'll see this edge is darker, so it looks like it's going down while this is coming up. So now I don't have a flat moon, I have a dimensional moon. And that's just a simple technique between the two. Okay? So I'll look at my tree and I'll say, okay, I like it. And in the end, after I do my owl, if I don't like it, then I'll go in and I'll add more colors to it. It's fine. There's no, right, that's what I was going to say. I knew it would come to me. My goal, any teacher's goal, is to teach you the technique. So I want you to learn how to dry brush. If you choose to have a lighter tree or a darker tree, that's totally up to you. Neither one is wrong. Whichever you like better is right for you. My goal, any teacher's goal, is to get you to do the techniques properly to learn how to create it. Okay? The coloring, totally up to you. Okay. So now we're going to grab some burnt umber, which I still have from before, and we're going to shade our owl. One of my favorite techniques, now we're going to use a 12 flat. I use chisel blenders because they have shorter bristles, and you can control your brush better when you have shorter bristles. So one of my favorite things to do is float. Anybody will tell you that. I have another artist friend who calls me the queen of floating. Yeah, go figure. So, floating. 4 steps. I'm going to write them for you. We'll do it this way. Wet, blot, blot, load, blend. Okay? Then all the bristles that you didn't know you were going to get an English lesson too, huh? On all the surface all the time. Okay? These are the golden rules to floating 101. Okay? If you remember these, you will always remember how to float. Okay? Floating, 4 steps. Wet, blot, load, blend. If you're just learning to float, or you have problems floating, write the words, and every single time you load your brush, say it. Say each step as you're doing it. The problem becomes when you don't say it until it becomes a habit, you forget it. And then when you forget a step, you're up a creek. So I'm going to leave that there for 1 second. Okay, so my 4 steps. I wet my brush. In my clean water, I wet. There is a shine on my bristles. I blot. You are going to watch the shine dissipate from your chisel edge to your ferrule. As soon as it hits your ferrule, lift. I blot flat. And I tell you the shine because every brush is different. You could have a different manufacturer. I use Dynasty brushes. I use black golds for my floating. You could use a different brush and I could say count to 4 and it won't be the same. So it's wet, blot, flat, corner load. Taking my brush now, I'm the opposite way and I'm just on the corner. Try not to hold your brush this way. Try to hold your brush as perpendicular to the paint as you can. So you just get, okay, I'm going to do blue. So you're just getting a little bit on the corner of your brush, okay? Because when you blend, now you're going to blend flat, your paint is moving across your brush. So see how far I am across my brush now? If you load your brush this way, you end up with a lot more, and when you blend, look at how much further across you are, okay? I'm going to go back to brown because we're going to float in brown. So we wet, we blot, we corner load, and we blend. Now when I blend, this is wrong. Long strokes is wrong. You see how when I get to here your paint is skipping? What that means is you're out of water in your brush. You don't want that. So you wet, blot, corner load, blend. Very small strokes, walking away from the paints. Don't walk back into it or you'll have it all over your brush till you have a graduation of color. So I start here. I have no graduation. I'm moving in small strokes. I have a graduation. Okay? Now you lost your paper. If you need it, somebody write it in the comments, and after I get off, I'll write it in the comments so that you have it. Okay? So wet, blot, load, blend. Blending in small strokes. Now what I want to do is use the dark to make the item recede. So I want my ears to go behind my head. And if you remember what the paint is, now see how all my bristles are on all the surface all the time. See that? I'm not doing this. Because if you do that, first of all, it's not smooth. But if you look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I could see every time I picked up that brush. I don't want to do that. I want a nice graduating float. If you get a bad float, take a mop and just come in and lightly mop. Up and down, don't move the paint. Don't do this. Okay? Wet, blot, corner load, blend. We want to push this side of the wing down. So we're going to float right there. What I will tell you is floating, and if you see, I'm one big stroke. I'm not little choppy strokes. I'm going to take that line off. I don't generally put lines back on, but you need them, put them on. It's not wrong. Okay? Wet, and if you use your mop, you have to use it dry. Now, remember what I said about color. Dark makes the item recede, light brings it towards us. So this wing is on top. So we want our paint to go towards the wing but we're on the owl because look at how I just pulled that wing up. Red, blot, load, corner, blend, small strokes. Oh, Valerie, you're wonderful. Thank you. So anybody who doesn't know, just read in the comments. Valerie just, I don't know if she mimicked me, but she helped me. Seriously. I'm going to make you all laugh. So now you see how I just took that wing and I pulled it up? That's remembering dark makes the item recede, light brings it towards us. Your paint would not go here. You want it to be deepest where you're pushing down, which happens to be the wing. I'm pushing this wing behind. So I'm come here. I'm going towards the body because this wing is behind the body. Okay? Now, he's starting to come to life, isn't he? Okay? Now, in your line drawing, you have his eyes. Let me just see. Give it a second for it to come on screen. Let me make sure you can see it. You guys are time delayed. Okay. So, you have a small circle and you have a big circle. And then, of course, you have the bottom iris part of his eye. So, the bottom is his iris. The top is his pupil. And this is where his little hair around his eyeball goes. So this line, the outside line, is just a guide to where the little hairs are going to go. So we want to pull up the eyeball. So what we're going to do is we're going to float outside the inner circle, not the outer circle, which you generally, I'd say you don't have to put it on, but what happens is when people don't put it on, which is why I put it in the line drawing, when people don't put them on, their hairs get really, really long. And then you wonder why his whole face is full of eye hair. So you have to be careful about that. Okay? So come in and I must have moved his eye. His eye is going to go a little bit off, but that's okay. Now keep in mind that as you're going, he's going to look really ugly. It's going to look a little weird too. But every step makes a difference to bringing him to life. Okay? So while that's drying, let's float a little bit on the bottom of his belly. Make him a little more dimensional, and then we'll float. Now you can see, I don't know if you can see the shine. If you can see that shine, that means it's still wet. That's how you can tell if paints or floats or anything is still wet, if there's a shine. Not really. Okay, well, there's a shine here. There's no shine here. So now I can come in and I can float outside of his beak. Do not float on his beak, because if you float on his beak, you won't see it, because we're going to base the beak in. Now he's starting to look a little different, right? Not looking as weird as he did a minute ago. Okay. Now, we're going to dry brush, and you can dry brush with the Mezza Luna. You can dry brush with a dry brush. I'm going to use the Mezza Luna because I'm going to stay in the same brushes we've been using. So, and we're going to pick up Fawn. We're going to go back to Fawn, which is the lighter color we dry brushed in the tree. And I don't think I need any more. I think I'm okay. And I'm going to, remember, I want to pull up some areas. So in the top of his ear, welcome everybody that's coming in, I'm going to dry brush his ears. I'm going to dry brush the top of his head. Now you can see he's suddenly getting more dimensional. Dry brush his wing. I do need more. He's suddenly getting more dimensional, isn't he? And we're going to make him a boy because I didn't give him a bow. So he's going to be a boy. So I'm going to come in. I'm going to dry brush in here. Now I'm not necessarily dry brushing everywhere where I didn't before. Just in some areas. So bring it up. Every time I need to load, load and pinch it. Load and pinch. We'll come in and we'll dry brush his belly. Now I'm not doing the whole thing, and I'm definitely not doing the dark areas. And you see how I just made him, every little step we do makes him more dimensional. Okay? Every step. Isn't he fun? I am not a full person at all. But I think owls are just too cute. You see how I just made him dimensional? And that's just a couple of techniques. I didn't do anything that's like major techniques where it should worry you. And again, you do this, you say, oh, I messed it up. Base over it and start again. There's no reason you can't. All right, so now he has little, I don't know if you can see, there's little feathers on his chest. So I'm going to take, now, I want the darkest part at the bottom. So I'm going to go back to my floating. And FYI, I want you all to practice floating for next month, because next month has a good amount of floating. And January does too. But they're really cute. Okay, so now I'm going to pick up a little tiny bit of burnt umber. I'll blend it out. And I'm going to start at the bottom, because if I start up here as I go down, I'll pull it off. I'm just going to make little U's. They are on your line drawing. But I don't, like, this is something that, like, it doesn't matter where they are. And you see what I'm doing? You see how many I'm getting? Now, I want to show you something. If I do here, if I did here first and then I did, okay, let me do one here. If I did here and then I came and did here, you see how I just lost that? Because if it's wet, it's going to come off. So always start away from where you're floating. So I'm floating, my paint is down, I start at the bottom and float upward. There's no set amount of these. And I'll just give him some texture on his belly, feathers on his belly, really. Okay. Now we had to dry brush first. If I floated first, the dry brush would go over it and take some of it out. And we don't want that. Okay, so now we're going to come in quickly. We based our moon golden straw. I think I did the bottom of his eyes golden straw. So let's paint. Now always use the biggest brush for the area you're working on. So I'm going to use a 2 or a 4. And I'm just going to come in and I'm going to base coat his beak. Remember what I said. Small, thin coats. Now you can see my first coat is not heavy. And we have to do this before we finish the eyes. I'm going to come in. I'm going to do the bottom of his eyes, which we're going to have to do again. But just block them in with one coat so you don't lose them. Okay, and I'm using a rigger, and I'm just coming in, and I'm just gonna give my guide, because once we put the hairs in, the eyes are on top of the hair that grows around his eyes is from under his eyes. Now I can see that's still wet. So generally I'd say dry it, but we can do his little feet here. So while that's wet, we can do feet. We need black and we need white, and you need a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. Okay, your paint will go a long way. Now you can see I put 1 drop. I will have so much left. So much left. Now think of his little claws, his feet are curving around the branch. Here's your branch. Here's your owl. They're not going to come like this. They're going to come like this. They're going to curve because they're curving around the branch. And they look like an upside down teardrop. So, I'm going to pick up black. Remember, they're coming from the body, so don't make them off of nowhere. I'm here, and I'm curving. They're thicker at the top, thinner at the bottom. It's a pretty bad claws, huh? And then I'm there. And then here, and here, and here, and here. Now they should be thinner at the bottom. I don't know. A liner somewhere. Now you can use a liner if you want. A liner will be much thinner. If you're in my world, you can't find your liner. So we're just going to leave them. Okay. Oh, here it is. Okay. So I'll come in and I'll thin this part, make it longer, thinner, and I'll make up here a little thicker. I need new liners, huh? Okay. And we'll thin here and thin. We need new liners. And we'll thin here. And just by thinning that out, they look like they're around the branch. See that? And I just thinned the point. While it's wet, pick up some white and just drag a little white in the middle. This one was still wet. That's where that problem came in. So what I did is it came out nice and bright white. So I just came in and I put some black on my brush and just went over it with black, and that toned it down. Okay. That's all there is to those little feet. Now you can go back and put another coat of golden straw. I don't know if I said that, I'm sorry. Golden straw on your beak. And here. Now I know it's not perfectly shaped here, but I also know his little hairs are going to be there, so I'm not the least bit concerned about that. But it needs to be there or your hairs won't make sense. Okay. burnt orange. Burnt orange. You see that? You need a tiny bit. We're going to float. I did tell you, floating queen. I love to float. Wet, blot, corner load, blend, small strokes. And I want to make my moon dimensional. So in making my moon dimensional, I want to push down the outside. So I'm going to come in, and I'm going to float. My paint is right up against the edge. Now if you notice, every time I need to, I go back and start in the beginning. I don't go, whoops. I don't go and start here where I ran out of paint. I come back in and I do the whole edge. And you see how I'm graduating in? And I'll come in with my mop and very lightly I will just come in and soften it. I'm not pulling the paints. I'm not banging the brush. I'm very, very, very lightly just softening it. Because it's a big float. It's a wide float. Does anybody have any questions? I keep checking the comments. Nobody wants to. That just means I'm explaining it perfectly. It's a good thing I don't go back and watch these, huh? I'd say, boy, she's full of herself. And I'm not really. Alright, so now I want to do the same thing with the beak. I'm going to float burnt orange. Now make sure your beak is dry. Now, this is a really important thing because people do it wrong, and when they do it wrong, it is wrong. It's not just doing it differently, it's wrong. They'll come down one side and up the other. So you'll have a very lined effect. I start my brush just here to give me a start, and then it's side to side. So whenever I'm going across something, it's side to side. It's not let me paint it. Here's a beak. And I'm going to float this in black just so you can see. Oh, yeah, black. Okay. It's not down this side and up this side. Okay. That looks like a very distinct V. This does not. Okay. It's side to side. Okay. Always, always, always side to side when you're in those kind of areas. Okay. So, there's nothing more to that beak. Okay. So now we're going to rake. I am a rake person. I love to rake. Whenever you rake, whenever you want depth, we talked about depth, you need dark to push it down and light to bring it up. So I never do straight one color when I rake. So I'm going to start with antique white, and after I do the antique white, I'm going to do warm white. I'm going to take my rake. I use a filbert rake, and I use a filbert rake because the flat ones give me that flat line, which I don't like. When you use a rake, now you can use a liner if you don't have a rake. It's a more work and it's a different look, but it's not wrong. Here's my eye. When we get to it, go in the water, go straight from the water to the paint, and you have an inky like paint. Okay, you have to thin your paint. my brush is closed. I'm holding it straight up and down, and I'm this, back and forth. Okay? So I'm going to put it down on my scrap paper, and I'm here. I apply pressure so that I've now opened my bristles. Can you see that? 1 second. I just have to give it a second to catch up. Yes, it says filbert rake, Donna. Good. Okay. Can you see? There's the name. Filbert rake. Okay. Now, very light pressure, holding the brush up. I'm going to, you can't see that, can you? So, you'll see it in my piece in a minute. Very little pressure, and you see all those lines. Okay, that's what we're achieving. Now, I'm going to draw. I'm going to draw you two eyes. This is wrong. This is right. Okay. People tend to start here, and then they follow it around. And they just keep moving their piece, and they go like this. And it looks like it's fine, right? Because you're following the eye. But by the time you get to here, you got a nice little pinwheel going on. You see that? And that's always. Okay? So, what you kind of need to do, you need to kind of start at 3, pull straight out, make sure 12 o'clock is straight up. Go over to 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock is straight. And you could do 3, 6, 9, 12 to start with. So you can come in and do here, here, here. Always pull from the eye out. And then just fill it in from there. But you see the difference between here and here? This is very pinwheely. You don't want that. Okay, so now I'm going to start with my antique gold. And remember, we drew that second circle. So it's only that far. It's not a long stroke. You're welcome. And I'm here. And I'm just coming out just a bit. And it doesn't have to be too bright because we're going to put another color. If your brush gets too dry, add more water and start over. And here. You are going to go all the way around the eye because the beak is behind. Okay. I'm going to come in and I'm going to do the other eye. And you see how I keep checking to make sure my direction's okay. And I keep flipping my piece. I don't tell you to do anything I don't do. I tell you to flip your piece because I flip my piece. I tell you to pull from the eye out because it's correct. That's what I do. Then I'm going to come in. I'm going to rinse my brush. I'm going to pick up warm white or titanium white if that's what you want to use. I'm going to do it again. You see the difference? The white is much brighter, but you need the antique white underneath it to give it more dimension. And I'm here. I'm not going to have to answer many comments when I get back, am I? Okay. Now, you can do this 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. It depends. You know, you'll look at it and say, now, that's not bright enough. Okay, so do it again. Again, this is not a right or wrong. Thank you, Shirley. This is not a right or wrong. You may want it brighter than I have it. Okay, so you can have it brighter than I have it. It's not a problem. So I'm doing it twice. Okay, so this eye, and I'm going to do them both. This eye is twice, this eye is once. Let me put it this way so it'll be right side up. So I'm just going to come in and put another quick. And you see the difference? And I'm just coming in. And I'm just giving him his little hair around his eyes. It's starting to look really cute with me. I agree. Okay. So now we're going to come in where we floated before. Now make sure you're dry. You should be pretty close to dry. That shouldn't be a problem. Am I frozen? No. Okay. We're going to take burnt umber. And we're just going to do a quick float on the white towards the eyeball so that we're going to pull the eyeball up. It's the same exact place we did it before. And you see, I'm moving my piece. I know I repeat myself a lot, but I repeat myself a lot so that it kind of sticks in your head. Oh, I have one eye bigger than the other. By a lot. That's okay. We'll fix that. Okay. Now we're going to come in. Hold the brush vertical using light pressure and divide into corners. And then rake in between each quarter. So that will stop you from getting a pinwheel. So always, when you do daisies, when you do anything that's a sphere, 3, 6, 9, and 12, and then fill in between. And that'll keep the hair in the right order. It makes his eyes pop. That brush is a 14 chisel blender. It's a Dynasty Black Golds. I have them here. I swear by it. So, all right, now we're going to come in and we're going to paint our iris golden straw. Just going to go right over what we just did. Now you should be able to see it really well because it's already there. I'm going to give it a second to dry. We'll do some, let's do some leaves. All right, now, I don't want anybody to stress, okay? People stress these leaves, and they're really very simple, and it's all about how you hold your brush. Midnight Green and Avocado. And then we'll go back and we'll finish the eyes. And then I'll show you lettering really quick. Okay. So I use a filbert, which I do have somewhere, I promise. A filbert has a rounded top. Okay? So the bristles are rounded at the top. I use them because if I use a flat, just say I take this brush and I'm just picking up both colors and I do this, see this edge? This is flat. I don't want it to be flat. So here's a really good, easy leaf lesson. I'm going to pick up both colors, green, green, so I have both colors on there. You start your brush on an angle, you end your brush on an angle, okay? If you watch my handle, I'm not turning my handle. I start here, I apply pressure, and I lift up to the point, up to the chisel edge. So pressure and up. And you see the difference in the edges? Pressure and up. I am not doing this. I am not turning my bristles. I am simply pressure and up. The trick is, don't start this way. Don't start this way. You're starting on an angle. You're ending on the same angle because you're not moving your brush. You're just pressure and up. Okay? So I'm just going to randomly put some leaves. I'm going to get some new filberts too. We're just going to randomly put some leaves onto our branch. I don't think much about them. They just come off the branch. And it doesn't matter if they're darker or lighter. You like them darker, make them darker. If you like them lighter, make them lighter. If you want to mix them, it doesn't matter. Now I have this mess going on here. I must have done it when I faced the background. So look, we'll just get rid of that with a leaf. How's that? And you can have as many or as few as you want. Okay? I know I'm saying okay a lot tonight. I don't usually do that. Now we're going to come in and we go back to a float and back to the burnt orange, and we're going to float. Now all of this is dry, so we can put our hand here. Just don't put your hands here. I'm going to float the bottom. Try not to be that wide. I'm going to float the bottom of the iris. And anybody who's painting along with me, and I know Emily is, anybody who's painting along with me, post your piece on the library page, post your piece on my page, post your piece on your page. Be proud of what you do. And I say post it on the library because we're thankful for them. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of black and my liner. Now when I do my liner work, or when I do my eyes, and I do this all the time, people think I'm out of my mind, but it works for me. I'm going to take my liner and black and use a better liner than mine because mine is separating. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to line my pupil. I'm going to line my pupil. I always take the excess off in the middle first, because when you pick it up, there's always, I don't want that to hit. So I'm here, and I'm lining. Now if you squint, you can see if your eyes are the same size. Squint and look at it. So now I cleaned out my bad liner. I'm going to come in with a bigger brush, which is I'm going to use a 2 flat, and then I'm going to fill in my pupil. That's the best way to do it. And again, black, unless you have too much water in your brush, will go on opaque and you only need 1 coat. If you have too much water in your brush and it's got areas of transparency, just wait until it dries and add another coat. Don't make yourself crazy over the little things. When you paint your piece, you're supposed to be relaxed and you're supposed to be enjoying, and it's supposed to be a happy time. I am almost always relaxed when I paint. Now that makes him really, really cute, doesn't it? I know I'm talking to myself. No, I know I'm talking to all you, but I can only hear myself. Then I'm going to come in. I'm going to take my stylus. Now you can use a stylus, you can use a toothpick, you can use the back of a brush. I'm just going to dot his eyes. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you lettering now, but he is done. Let me just quickly dry him. Let me check. Oh, you guys are so good. You have no comments. I am glad you're all here. I'm hoping you all stayed the whole time. Aw, thank you. See, the eyes made the difference, Rochelle, right? Once you put the eyes in, he looks like an owl. So you always have to remember, and I say this in class, like when I'm physically in class, you have to let me get you there. So even if you're here, and that's why I always demo, because the process matters. You don't just go, from step A to step Z with nothing in between. You have to let me get you to that step, and every single step I do, there is a reason for. Not just because I want to drive you crazy, which sometimes I might. Alright, so my lettering is golden straw. So you need golden straw and you need spiced pumpkin. I'm going to do it on here because I don't think this is dry. Well, you know what? We'll just do this. Watch. Put that there. Golden straw and spiced pumpkin. Now you can go on and you have your words, line drawing, and you can transfer it on. I'm going to take a rigger, and I use a rigger, and I come in, and with my rigger, I pick up paints, and I kind of wiggle it. So now I've got a flat brush, but it'll go flat and round at the same time. Valerie, all of my brushes are Dynasty except for my filbert rake because they don't make one. But yes, my mop is a series, I should know this off the top of my head, series 400. If you have brush questions, just ask me. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to do, here's my M. My brush is flat. Whoop. If you're pulling like this, you need a little bit more water in your brush. And here's an M. And you would just follow along with your lettering. I'll do an M. And this is just telling me here, you see how it's skipping? That's, I don't have enough. My paint is not thin enough. So thin your paint a bit. M, and I'll do an O. Pressure and up. Pressure and up. I'll rinse my brush. I'll pick up some spiced pumpkin. And again, I'm flattening my brush. Turn upside down. And while it's wet, so don't do all your lettering, I'm pulling my color up from the bottom. I'm not pulling it all the way up. So now it looks like, and I wrote Moonlit Autumn because that was in my head at the moment. And you see how that looks like? It's got a nice shade to it. You can write whatever you want. You can write welcome. You can write your last name. You can write anything in the world you want. So don't get hung up on you have to write what I write or you have to write what another teacher writes. Make it your own. Write a name. Write nothing. I mean, this one is going to have nothing because the way I did it, it's a different piece and I have no no space for it. So again, here's, what letter? He will do a U. Pressure. And then I stop because okay, so here. I'm here, and I'm not taking my hand and trying to go here. I'm going here. My hand is not comfortable. I'm coming here, and my hand is comfortable. Okay? I'm going to turn. I'm going to pick up the spiced pumpkin. And I'm just going to drag some. Now, you have to do it while it's wet. So whatever words you do 2 letters max. Don't try. And then if you dry, so here, it's say you have a line here, just pull some yellow back down in. And that'll, excuse me, that'll break up any harsh lines you have. Okay. Oh, Dolores, I'm so glad you stayed. I want everybody to stay with me. I want everybody to paint with me. I want everybody to be happy. Okay. So, it was, we dry brushed, we base coated, we dry brushed, we put in some, we call these squishy leaves. Now, if these are too dark for you, because in looking at them, I say, now here, I've done them, and I look at them. Now, it's a nighttime sky, I get it. I say, oh, they're dark. So, I'll go back in, I'll pick up avocado. Now, maybe I'll pick up a little bit of golden straw. And I'll add a couple that are lighter. If you use less pressure, they're smaller. I'm using the same exact brush. Oh, Donna, I'm so glad. I'm glad you're all here. Okay, and then I just added some light ones to pop it up. Okay, I use the same brush. So this big one is done the same as this little one. I just use less pressure. Okay. So, we worked with a Mezza Luna tonight. We worked with a rake. We worked with, I use a 14 chisel blender. Float with what you're comfortable with. Some people like angles. The only thing I will say is if you paint with me, do not paint with less than a 12 flat. You will not get the float you want. I know some teachers do it. I'm not saying they're wrong. It's wrong for me, and I don't want you to do it with me, because that I'll yell at you for. All right, now I'm going to show you, today's Thursday, so Wednesday night's project, which is on my Facebook, it's on the library's Facebook, is this. Isn't it beautiful? We won't go over floating. It's an 8x8 surface. We won't go over floating. I'll just say float. We're going to do, these letters are all raised. You need a stencil. The supply list is on both Facebooks, the library and my own. I put, these patterns are stenciled. You do not have to use this pattern. You do not have to use any pattern. But it looks really cool. And then we're going to float each one of these nice little bittersweet. This has glitter. If you're going to glitter, you need to have your glitter. And I used, I believe, modeling paste. But if you don't want them raised and you don't want them glittered, you can just do a flat stencil. I'll show you how to stencil. Again, any words. December. You all ready? I've been itching to show you all for so long. But I only give you a sneak peek the month before. So the pumpkins are next Wednesday. December, the beginner class. December 7th. Ready, set, go. I don't know if you can see the whole thing. Just wait a minute. I gotta wait for you to catch up. I did. I made myself a note with the dates. Okay, so here, M-E-R-R-Y. Such a fun piece. Tracy Moreau has Scribble Stencil, it's called, Marie. Okay, this piece is from Dollar Tree. It looks like this before it looks like this. So you can get this at the Dollar Tree. While you're at the Dollar Tree, and I'm not going to show you the rest of them, but this is my December, this is an ornament. This is the December project for the intermediate class, and he's really, really cute. And then I just did January beginner. It's this piece, you're welcome. It's this piece, which is also at Dollar Tree. Okay, so I know Dollar Tree has things until they don't. So this one says Let It Snow. I know it's bigger than where my camera is, but it's really cute. Okay, and the intermediate for January will be on fabric, so you can pick whatever fabric. But if you go into the Dollar Tree, these are the 3 pieces you want. This is our next beginner piece. The pumpkin is our next week's intermediate piece. Okay, so I hope you all had a wonderful time. I accidentally found this lesson. Happy I did. Well, Peg, I'm glad you did too. I am here twice a month, at least during while we're not allowed to meet in person. And my personal Facebook, I try to do 2 Thursdays a month, but sometimes it's more and sometimes it's less. So that's where we're at. Joanne, thank you. Thank you all for coming. I hope you learned so much. I hope you had so much fun. If you have any questions, leave comments and I will answer them. I get notifications most of the time. And I will answer all your questions. I don't have a problem. Private message me. I'm happy to do it. All right, I'm going to flip around. I'm not going to put myself back on camera because I hate the way I look on camera. I want to tell you all good night. You're very welcome, Shirley. If you're not here next Wednesday, thank you, thank you. If you're not here next Wednesday, have a very happy Thanksgiving, and I will see you all next week or next month. Have a good night. Look, we'll do this. No, rotate my phone. I don't want to rotate my phone. Okay. This is the worst part. All right. Good night, all. Have a good night.